Today we're going to tie for you a Clouser Crayfish, and you'll see a few versions on the internet with the carpet back style, but we're going to tie the dark turkey back style, which is the preferred crayfish in our area. Works really well on the lower Madison, lower Yellowstone, Missouri as a dead drifted crayfish pattern, and I've known a few people to actually use it instead of some summer stonefly nymph patterns and do really well with it. So great, mostly a dead drifting pattern, but can also be swung in some areas and twitched. In today's video we're going to be tying the Clouser Crayfish with the dark turkey back. Here we have a size 10 700 Dai-Riki hook, and then we're going to start off with some 140 Denier gray thread, or gray brown in this case, UTC. And we're going to get a base of thread started here at the eye and take that back to the rear, trim off your excess, and then we're going to get a little bit of 025 lead-free wire on there to give this fly a little bit of weight. This is a dead drifted pattern primarily, so it doesn't need a ton of weight, and around here it's often fished in pretty shallow water. Lower Madison is one of the places where it's fished the most around here, and the depth of water you're fishing there usually varies from 1 to 3 feet in most cases. Definitely getting deeper in certain areas, but get that locked in. We're going to create a little thread dam on the back side there, wrap quickly over the wire, a thread dam in front, and then we'll go back over that a couple of times. And then we'll stop our thread right above the barb. And first material we're going to tie in is ringneck pheasant tail feather, and this is a pretty unique feather that has kind of a heart-shaped tip there, and you can find that pretty close to the neck of the skin if you have one. Not a feather that is used a lot for other patterns. What I'm going to do here is expose the very tip of the feather like this, and we're going to tie in our first part, which we want to measure out. It's I think maybe it's part of the antenna, maybe it's some mouth parts, I'm not really sure, but the length of this should be about half the length of the shank. Transfer that over to the left of my hand and get those tied in right on top, and tie those in securely, and then trim off the excess. You want to save the rest of this feather because we're going to use this for the legging material here shortly. Next we're going to get a ringneck center tail feather. We're going to grab a few strands off of that. I like 4 is a good round number for this particular pattern, for 4-ish, maybe 4 to 6. Pheasant tail tends to be brittle and you can lose some. And I like this to be about the length of the hook. You can go a little bit longer too if you like. Maybe it adds a little more movement to this particular pattern. So I'm actually going to overshoot this one and go maybe 1 1/4. I'm going to tie that in right on top of that first material. Trim off the excess. Next we're going to tie in a sliver of dark turkey tail feather. The commercial pattern uses something that is less mottled than this, which you can certainly do, but I think this coloration works well for this pattern out here. So here's a strip that I've also coated with lacquer so those fibers hold together well, and the width of the strip is a little less than the gap of my hook. And I'm going to tie that in on top of the hook, dark side down, and tying it in by the cut ends. So the ends closest to where these fibers would be attached to the stem of the feather. Get that tied in. And now we're going to grab our pheasant body feather, take that back. We're going to prepare it by cutting away at the stem a little bit here, exposing some more stem, pulling those fibers up out of the way. And we're going to tie this in at the top of the hook, on the top of the hook. Like that. Get some good tight wraps on that so that doesn't pull out when you're doing other things. And now we're going to dub. We have a gray rabbit dubbing here. And we're going to build up a pretty good sized, what I'll call a thorax, which I assume is appropriate for a crayfish. I've built up a fair amount of dubbing here, and I'll start building my thorax, which is going to take about a third of the hook shank here, and we're really going to overbuild this and make a nice fat bulbous thorax. Maybe that's reaching a little closer to maybe 2/5 of the shank there that we've taken up. Now we're going to take our body feather, and I'm actually going to flip the vise so you can see the top of the fly, and I'm going to pull that feather over, and I'm going to peel back some of these fibers that I don't want to tie in for my legs, which will end right at the end of the thorax there. Got those pulled back, and then we'll lock those in right there. And then trim off the excess. See that? And now we're going to pull our turkey strip, our tail strip here. Got some other fibers that want to play as well. Get rid of those. Get that. It's kind of wanted to cup on me. Clean that up a little bit. We want to attach that right in front of that thorax there. A couple wraps. Now we're going to pull that back and then take a wrap on top of that. And there we're not gonna trim off this strip. We're gonna use it for the rest of our abdomen in a later step. Now we're gonna take a loop of this thread, and I have about a 4-inch loop here that I've pulled down, and I'm gonna lock that in, and then I'm gonna cut off one of the ends, and I've just created a ribbing material. All you use is the same colored thread for a rib on this particular pattern. Here I'm going to tie in this barred ginger dry fly feather. I'm going to prepare it by pulling back some of this butt, the fuzzy butt materials, trimming that to length, and tying this with the convex side out. Get that locked in well, and then we'll go ahead and dub with this the same gray rabbit dubbing, and this is going to be much thinner profile than the thorax. I have a relatively thin rope of dubbing built up here. I'm just going to make sure that I butt up against that last wrap of the thorax, and then move forward, and we'll also taper this down as we get closer to the eye. You can manipulate that a little bit as you go. Tighten that up. I might get rid of that last little bunch there. Just trim that out. So you got a nice little taper down to the eye there. And we're going to wrap forward our ginger feather. And this feather the color of it is not super critical. I do like barred ginger, regular ginger would work fine, even a dun colored feather. I think our standard browns are too dark though, at least for our area around here. Get that locked down. And then I'm going to show you the top of the fly once again. Trim off some of those extra fibers. And then I'm going to take the rest of this turkey, pull it forward over the back, lock that down right at the eye of the hook. And we're going to trim off the excess here, but we're not going to trim it completely down. We want to leave a little bit of a tail. So I'll leave about that much material. And then last thing to wrap is our ribbing, which is just the gray thread. And we'll get probably about 5 wraps. And I'll just kind of wiggle through these fibers so I don't lock any down, and then attach right at the head, or the tail in this particular case. Trim off the excess. We'll whip finish and be done. You can kind of trim away any errant fibers you may have, not that it will likely matter to the fish. And there it is. Thanks for watching. And there it is. Thanks for watching.